Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Frankie Slauson, and welcome to another great edition of Renegade Radio right here on the YouTube. It is season two, episode number 8. We are at the end of February here on this Monday, February 26th, 2024. I'm your host with the most, Frankie Slauson, and this is the full version of the episode that you won't get on the live version because this is pre-recorded show, even though it is live on Facebook. But this part here is never seen, never seen at all. It's just me giving an introduction and let you guys know what's coming up here for this week. And this week we got a pretty good episode. It's we're gonna be joined by Travis Orndorff, the son of the legendary Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, another former WCW slash WWE wrestler that we're interviewing tonight as we end the month of February and start the road to WrestleMania, and also starting this Friday and through the whole month of March. We're getting ready for what I like to call March Madness month, and it'll be March Madness month 2024. Doesn't really mean a whole lot. It just means that I kind of take it from the uh, NCAA basketball. They always have the tournaments and stuff, and I think that's always been kind of a catchy title. So I've always enjoyed that type of title. So we're gonna call it March Madness month, and it's gonna be March Madness here all month long. Don't know, everything that we're gonna be doing right away, but we've got some good guests planned, and we will talk about those guests here when the show starts. But for tonight, we got uh, the son of legendary wrestler Paul Orndorff. We got Travis Orndorff on, so I hope you guys enjoy that as we're getting ready. Let's see. Right. Hello, hello. On you. And you. Oh, they're not even ready yet, huh? Let's see here.
Check
Oh, there
one,
you
two.
are.
Can you hear it?
Can you hear me?
Oh, absolutely, I can.
Perfect. I
Oh,
think I got it. I can't hear myself, but I can hear you.
Oh, that's good. You don't want to hear yourself. You
No.
want to
Yeah,
hear
No,
you-
I don't want to hear myself.
You don't worry about
I'm
the-
surprised you guys want to.
that cord on that too. I think I can
I mean,
turn it
like
up.
if you hear your
Don't be
if you
buffing that because it crackles. It's got a different.
Okay.
what I'm
Not like
saying
that.
is if you hear yourself, it's like it really drops. I
You
don't know.
should sound really good because she's got a better microphone than you do.
For your information, I have a microphone there.
Well, guess what? I'm wearing the headphones, so he can't hear you anyway.
That's right. So fuck off. And I'm just kidding.
You can read lips though.
That's just.
How about this?
Oh, hey, you got it on camera
We're
now.
recording.
Oh,
Just
shit.
wanna-
Man, you gotta edit that out. I just mooned the camera. I don't know if I wiped all the way.
Well, I saw a crack. I don't know how deep we were in there, but
Does it sound good, Frankie,
Yeah.
or what?
Oh yeah. You sound
Your
like
mic sound?
you sound pretty crisp, like an like an apple. I was gonna say like an asshole, but like an apple.
Well, either way, some assholes are pretty crisp, but they don't get wiped well enough.
Oh Jesus.
Crispy.
That's
Oh
just
my
what I
God.
want to think about now. Thanks.
Oh, lovely. Starting the show off right.
Yeah, well, we're this is just a pre-show stuff. We're not live yet. We're just like this is just I hit the record button on the YouTube version, but that's before everybody got here. So we're just waiting
Okay.
for everybody to show up, and then I'll get the live ready here pretty soon.
Yeah, I know I can.
Yeah.
I finally actually brushed my hair today now, so that's good.
Okay. Well, that's good. I mean, you look fine.
Well, I
anyways,
Well, I
so-
was wearing that hat because, he says you can put it on full screen, and I was like, yeah, I know, I don't need to see my face that big.
Well, why not?
Oh yeah, the camera's up there. Okay, hi.
Oh. Yay. So we're gonna wait
So I've
here
got,
for a few minutes,
yeah.
and then I'll get the Facebook Live going.
yeah, I didn't know how close I needed to be to the mic, so that's why I was moving it, and he's like, no, 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 don't move it, it'll crackle, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, you want to be careful of that stuff, that's for sure. Don't want to get too crazy about it. But yeah, how's your day then after I left? Everything
Well,
good?
Denise took me to the pawn shop because we got a beer order tomorrow, so brought some stuff to the pawn shop, and now we can pay the beer truck tomorrow when they get it here. And
So is she like a wealthy person or something? She has some money?
no, she has money that is not quite expendable, but it's available, so we do pay her back.
Okay.
And
That's
she's
all right,
okay with
though.
smaller payments, and she'll come in and she'll, look in the till and look at the Z reports, and they're like, did you guys need groceries or something? And yeah, we need groceries. All right.
I think what she will probably find out is that, maybe she can help you with some good advertising. But I told her, I
Mhm.
said, once you guys get your stuff together and you start making some money and whatever, we can always use little Bobby's as a sponsor. Maybe people will start taking us more seriously, both of us more seriously, if they understand that there's a podcast that's being sponsored by you guys, but then we talk about the bar and everything, and talk about the weekly menus and whatever, and if there's anything going on, you can talk, because
Oh,
the
yeah.
thing about it is, like, if we're we may start limiting the guests, like maybe do it every so often, where it's not every week.
Yeah,
We're
people,
every
that's what
other
I was
week.
thinking too. Like maybe somebody wants to get to know each of us panel members, and
Yeah.
1 week you can be the guest, the next week John Roberts can be the guest, and we'll interview him
Well, I don't know.
or
It's I
or
don't
ask
see. I
audience
think
questions,
I think what we need to do before we do all that is, I feel like, because that's why I'm the one behind the scenes here getting everything started. I don't mind not being the guest, or being the host or whatever.
Right.
But it's like I've offered that position to other people and nobody wants to take it. You know, nobody is interested. I mean, maybe you should be. Maybe I should just have you be the host or the co-host, because it sounds weird just not being a host, even though I'm the one that puts it all together. So it's gonna have to be a co-host thing regardless.
Well, yeah, and most of the guests we have, them
Yeah,
like somehow personally, or
yeah, it works out pretty good. I mean, I've been very happy and very lucky that it's worked out as good as it has, because I didn't. I'm surprised, man. I tell you, even while you've been gone and stuff, some of the people that you missed and whatever, I'm sure you look back on that and you were just like, man, it was like a good period of time where we were just like hitting one after another, and we still are. But like I was saying last week, it's like I'm getting to the point where I feel like I need a little help.
okay.
I always need a little help. No psychiatrist.
I don't know. I was gonna say, I don't know if I'm qualified to give you the help you need, but as far as the show goes, but
Well, yes,
no,
yes. That's
yeah,
what
the only concern I would have about doing that is because of the fibromyalgia, and I get the fibro fog. I would literally have to have a notepad and pen sitting in front of me and look like I'm not paying attention half the time to write down what I want to ask.
Sure.
It kind of almost feels unprofessional to me, but they've got these, there's these whiteboards too, but that's going to show up for the audience, because I was trying to think of a way we could raise our hands to speak without the audience all seeing us raise our hands like we're in fucking grade school.
Yeah.
So I was like thinking, if all of us had another device that we were using as well, we could be on the chat and be like,
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I understand completely. I'm gonna put it on the public here.
like that.
Laura. Hold on here. Kind of look at 100 things at the same time here. Laura.
Oh, I need a mouse pad.
Yeah, you look really good though. I mean, really, the quality and the connection. So it must be. Are you hardwired in, like
Yep.
Ethernet wise? Okay.
Yep. No. That the computer itself is on Wi-Fi.
Oh, then it
But
must be
the-
really good. You
but
must
the
have good internet or
headphones,
something.
yeah, yeah, because the main box is right here and the router is here and the main box is over in the bar. So yeah, it's full bars.
There he is. Mr. John Roberts there. How's it going?
How you doing?
How you doing?
Yeah.
I'm doing good. Sorry I missed out last week.
No, you're
Understandable.
fine. You missed a good episode though, I tell you what.
I know.
You missed my comeback episode.
I know.
I've been drinking coffee all day, boys.
Oh,
We're
boy.
in for a good show.
Oh boy.
Oh, no,
Hey.
I haven't been drinking alcohol, so it's not gonna be that good, but
Oh, I mean, hey, even without the alcohol, it's okay. I think you do better shows when you're sober anyway. I would think.
or
I'm
at least
hoping, right?
or at least not half in the bag.
That's right, or 3 sheets to the wind, or
Right.
blowing in the wind.
I mean, if I got a
or
drink in front of me and I'm not
blowing,
sitting there slamming damn near straight gin the whole time I'm sitting here and a
okay.
complete puddle by the end of the show, yeah.
Well, if you turn into
Well, some of us call it vocal lubrication.
Oh. Yes, that's
That's what I call it at the racetrack. You're screaming for hours. And so I'll have like one beer during the first half of the races, and then intermission, I'll grab another one for the second half. But you have to. I mean, you can't.
well,
drink
it doesn't
pop.
have to be beer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I could
could
have a
just-
mixed drink in this like I did
yeah.
before. You guys would never know.
You could just have
Yeah.
water.
You'd know by the end of the show, but you wouldn't know now.
You could just have water. I'll tell you what. Sir.
Oh, ew. God, it's got no flavor.
Oh, okay.
Actually,
flavored water.
actually,
Peanut
a couple
water.
of beers brings out personality in some people too.
Oh,
Loosens me up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
that's right.
And
you
that's
start
why
tasting
I
really
did, I
good.
was drinking when I first started the show, just because I sometimes have issues with
link
public
there,
speaking.
first one. All right. Well, I'm gonna start the show here. I think we're about ready. We're still waiting for Nancy and Eric, but they'll be here when they be here. Our
Okay.
guests will be coming on about 6:30, so we'll just start it right now.
Right.
What's going on, everybody? Today, welcome to a special episode of Renegade Radio right here on Facebook. Here once again with the crew that you know and love. Here, doing our thing like we always do. It's the Renegade Radio crew. I'm your host Frankie Slauson, along with Mama T. We got John Roberts and we got Screaming Sam over here. I don't know where the other guys are, but they'll show up when they show up. That's normally how it works, people are either coming up when they should or they are gonna be a little late, but that's okay. I like jobs, we don't fire anybody if they're late, or we don't write nobody up at all,
Yeah, we're not
Thank you.
we're
Yeah,
not doing clocking in and stuff,
that's right. Policy, we have policy. Anyway, enough of the P word. Well, tonight we got a great episode, which I'm so excited about because, last week's episode that we did with Keith Elliott Greenberg was pretty good. For everybody that was here, and even John Roberts missed it, but I'm sure, I don't know, did you look back at all and watch it at all or listen to it or anything?
I watched bits and pieces of it when I had the chance. Yeah, this has been just a crazy couple weeks for me.
Oh, sure. Well, that's understandable. We don't have to dive too much into it because we know you've been through some shit, and it hurts. We feel your what's it call it? Your pain. Your emotional pain. Because it's not
Well, it
funny
gets
to people.
worse. I turn a year older tomorrow.
Oh Jesus.
No, you turn a day older tomorrow. It's just the anniversary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
smart ass. I know. Sorry.
But I'm still not 60 yet.
Well, we could get you all a pair of Depends or a package of Depends. Would you like that? Would that be okay?
Not
Get you a
yet, but I
cane.
might bank them.
Reminds me of a
Anyway.
joke. We haven't done jokes in a long time.
Well, let me get through this introduction first. And we'll have all the comedy and whatever and all the bullshit that we normally do.
Aye, aye, Captain.
Tonight's yeah, that's right. Captain. I'm the captain. Remember that. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, getting full of myself again. Tonight we have a really good show. We have Travis Orndorff. And who the hell is Travis Orndorff? Well, he is the son of the legendary Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. So he's not a wrestler, but his father was a wrestler, and a very legendary one, if you guys know on your wrestling history.
Oh, yeah.
Easy trivia question, of course, that he and Roddy Piper were in the first main event of WrestleMania against Hulk Hogan and Mr. T. That's simple knowledge that every wrestling fan should know. Basic like Hogan Andre. You know?
Mr. Wonderful. Mr.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yes. You know, you have to be a wrestling fan to know, because back in 1985, I don't know how much you remember. There's Bob. You know.
What's up, fucking Johnny?
Anyway, so
Oh, babe, thank you. Look, he brought me lubrication.
oh, jeez.
What a sweetheart.
She's gonna be
Vocal
taking her bra
lubrication.
Easy
We
off.
were
with
just
the
talking
coffee.
about that.
You're gonna be taking her bra off and showing everybody things that we can't see on Facebook.
Oh, no, I'm not good. Not with Budweiser.
And then John will be the next one, and then Sam will show his boobs, and I'll have to show mine, and we'll just have to. It'll just be a weird episode.
Eh,
Right when our guest gets here, you know. Anyway, anyway, so
That'll be a
that's
nice
what we got
greeting,
going
huh?
on tonight. How's everybody been? It's good to have everybody here. Welcome to the show. What's going on?
Here we go.
What Sam? What have you been up to? You haven't really said much at all. You've been pretty quiet. How's it going?
Yeah, just a fucked up day. I just hate people today, so I don't say. I'm not saying too much to anybody.
Oh, well, tell
Afraid
us
the
how you
wrong
really
shit
feel.
might come out, and then people really hate my guts.
Oh, that's yeah, but your
You
job
know?
is to be.
Look,
screaming
we're gonna
smack.
love you.
You're supposed to be the guy who screams at people and not take no shit from nobody. Remember?
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So what happened to that? What happened to the cool, aggressive guy that had a set of nuts? You know.
One good thing is I met a goal. I did 4 pounds this week, and I lost 80 pounds altogether.
Oh,
Good
that's
Nice.
nice.
job.
Way to go. Way to
Oh,
go, man.
See, it's not all.
Way
I'm
to go.
happy with that.
It's not a shitty week after all. You went
Yep.
to, and, you know.
Yeah, it's just a lot
How'd
of
you
things
go?
getting on me, but like I don't know, dude. It's just it take too long. You'd have to do a whole show on me today, and then you know,
Do we need to do a Dr. Phil episode or whatever?
yeah. That's
Ask
funny.
Mama T.
My brother's watching the show, but he ain't on.
I sent everybody the address, so I don't know what his deal is. Hopefully, he's not mad at me now after last week's phone call, because again, I was not mad at
No,
him.
he's not. He's not.
He probably
So,
thought with my language, but it was fine. Go ahead, John.
you guys ready for a blizzard tomorrow or tonight or what?
Oh,
It
Jesus
was pushing
Christ.
60 degrees here, Sam, today. Now they're talking we're in a blizzard warning tonight, tomorrow, and it's going to be down in the teens with
That's not
up
for
to
us, though,
3,
right?
4, 5 inches of snow.
No, that's just for us. in
What's that?
Minnesota here.
That's not for us. I think that's just you
Yeah.
guys. Hey,
Oh
good
yeah,
luck.
no, it's for us. And then in 3 days, we're back up in the 50s again. 2 days.
Today was gorgeous. Tomorrow's going to be a nice day. I mean, but I seen the snow pattern. It is going to hit Ohio, but it's not
Mhm.
the upper Ohio. It's like the lower part.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing for me, I guess. But I'd be better off in Florida,
we all
where I
would.
belong.
We all would.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm not ready for another. I mean, I'm glad it's happening during the weekend or my weekend where I don't have to work at all. But it's like, come on, you know, it's like, do we need more snow? I mean, it is February, but I mean, normally it's colder than this. This is the first time I went outside with a t-shirt and shorts, you know, because I felt, well,
Yeah.
it's a nice
Well,
day
how
to
can
do
it be-
that.
The thing is,
I got a question.
we
How
just
can
need
it
some
be-
moisture up here.
Yeah, John.
Oh,
How could be a-
we need moisture up here. That's all. It's gonna be really dry if we don't.
How can there be a blizzard at 50-some degrees weather? How does that happen? It can't
Because
last long.
by tomorrow, it'll be in the teens. And
Oh.
then the wind's gonna pick up. We'll probably be 20 to 30 below zero with the wind chill. And then again, by Thursday, they're talking 40s above again. It's just weird. It's just a weird deal. I mean, I saw more people on shorts. People are riding motorcycles up here. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
They're right
yeah.
here too. Yeah, Kyle Wegner. He
Oh,
says
yeah.
60 degrees. He's from Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Oh yeah, he's
Yeah.
from.
And
He's
Darren
from,
Foss said, "Who ordered this white shit?" I guess he's got it already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
No,
mean, I got asked to go announce snowmobile races this past weekend, and they've got them coming up again this next weekend. So you could take your damn motorcycle to the snowmobile races and watch them race on a frozen lake.
That's crazy.
That doesn't happen around here very often.
No, not definitely not like that. I mean, that's I mean, this almost reminds me of like when I was in South Dakota, because in 2014, January 2014, our weather in Rapid City was very weird because it would be like this, but it got up to like one day in January, like 75 degrees, and people were literally riding motorcycles. Because I was working at the truck stop at the time, at the Pilot's truck stop, working at Subway at the time. So I definitely remember that. I'll never forget that.
Well, apparently, Sam, you don't realize what it's like up here in Minnesota, because we can be 60 below zero in the at midnight, and then be up to 30 degrees by noon.
Why do you want to live in that kind of shit?
I don't. I don't.
You know,
Which
you
is
could go
why-
south a little. You could go south a little bit, like
I'm not making the announcement here live, but there's some news we're gonna be having here coming up pretty soon. So,
Mama
Yeah.
T, you look professional tonight too. So I just want to let you know that.
and I sound professional.
Absolutely,
I
can hear
got a
everything.
real, I've got a real mic. Like last
Wow.
week, I showed you what I was going to have. I like lifted up my laptop, but no, I've got the Apple computer, and I've got real actual headphones and a real studio mic. Like, I'm in the booth, man.
Oh, that's crazy.
Tony texts me. He says I don't have the number ever sent him. I don't know. He's been trying.
I'll send him the friend link here. Don't worry. I'll take care of that.
He says, but he could take the week off. He don't care. You know, whatever.
It really don't matter to me, but I mean, this is probably our last wrestler thing for a little while anyway, until
We'll send it to him, see if he comes on. He'll probably come on.
Because the next week, I was going to say, we actually, to let you guys know, in case you weren't paying attention to the announcement I made. Well, I told Eric about it yesterday, so he knows about it. But we will have a guest for next week. But this guest is not really a celebrity or anything like that. This guest is actually, I thought about it, and I thought, I'm not against, doing stuff with just regular people or whatever. I'm not trying to be like, oh, we gotta just have famous people on, blah, blah, blah. But if you're doing something cool and you're doing something that almost has to do with entertainment or is a little bit entertaining at least, we want you on because we want to know what you're doing. We want to know, we want you to share your story with us. At least I think that's what we should be doing anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe I got the message all wrong where made it seem like I just care about celebrities only. I don't. I do not. It's just been our luck
Are you
that
gonna
we've
quit
had-
dragging this on and tell us who's coming on or what?
No, I'm going to tell you a 5-10 minute story beforehand. Okay, his name is
Because
Tony-
the thing is, these human interest stories, they're great to have, Sean. Everybody doesn't have to be famous.
I know. I'm just, hey, we've been lucky, man. We've been very lucky.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Tony, his name is Tony Price. He's from Minnesota. What he does is he goes on these missions where he's literally does these bike ride or motorcycle rides, as we were talking about a few weeks ago about bikers that do all this stuff for charity and all that. Well, he does veteran rides and whatnot, and he's been interviewed by over 60 radio stations, 200 podcasts or whatever. He's been in the paper. He's been all over. So he's going to join us next week. He's from Minnesota, so he's one of us. He's one local or whatever. But it's more, I believe, southern Minnesota. So
That
he's
would
gonna be on
qualify.
next week.
That
Yeah.
would qualify him to be interviewed in my newsletter as well, since we've got that Veterans Corner. Maybe he'd like to not only be on a podcast, another podcast, but also be featured in a newsletter as well.
Sure. Oh, I'm sure that wouldn't bother him at all because the more you talk about it, let's see. He sent me some information. Like, see, this guy got a hold of me on one of our other pages that I haven't looked at in a while. The other Renegade Radio page that we have. That's not the one you guys are familiar with. I have a separate one that's totally different. So I haven't been checking my messages on there. And here I got this guy found us and was interested in being on the show back in December. And here I finally just answered him just like a couple weeks ago. I was just like, oh, hey, we could use you if you want to come on. What I'm talking about is I'm gonna share a little synopsis of what he sent me. Said I ride to honor and support Gold Star families, and I've been doing it for 5 years. I personally met with 498 of them. I've logged over almost 124,000 miles. I visited each of the lower 48 states at least 4 times each. I've burned through 14 back tires and 9 front tires. Must be a motorcycle joke there. I've crashed twice. The second time hitting a deer while rolling at 70 miles per hour, totaling the motorcycle. I got my my replacement bike in December last year. I've completed 52 rides just in 2023. I've been to 39 states, met with 48 families. Every day something happens to remind me how God is in control. Also, in the last 5 years, I've been featured on local news stories in 25 markets. I've been interviewed on more than 60 radio stations and over 200 podcasts. I don't know how many times I've had my name in the paper or magazines. And then he says, yours sincerely, Tony Price. So, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think that'd be kind of fun to have.
That'll be a good one.
And then
That'll be a good one.
and then the following week we go back to our little Hollywood lifestyle or whatever. Well, I have this person on because one, we don't hardly have any females on. You know, if you notice, we haven't really had too many females on the show. We've had a lot more males on, other than Mama T, but like most of our guests haven't really been female related. There's been more guys in here. I don't know, it just happens to work that way, I guess. But this woman was in the Ghostbusters 2, and because of the new Ghostbuster movie coming out here on March 21st, we're gonna have her on to talk about the film, to talk about her experiences, because she was in Answer the Call, the one with the women, the Ghostbusters movie with the women. She
Oh.
played the Lady Slimer. She did the voice of the Slimer character. In Ghostbusters 2, she was Slimer. Like the CGI, or before CGI, they actually had her in a suit and everything. And yeah, it's kind of weird how that worked out. And she was also in the movie Willow. If you guys remember Willow.
Oh, yeah, really?
Wow.
Yeah. So that'll be in 2 weeks. And so and I
Did
figured,
you say Willow?
yes, Willow. Yep.
Was that like Tom Cruise?
Well, was he in Willow?
Yes, yes.
Well,
He was
must-
just
okay.
young.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
thinking like Val
It's like
Kilmer
a
and stuff,
teenager.
you know. I haven't seen the
Yeah.
movie in a long time, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look it up.
It's
Yeah.
definitely something interesting, that's for sure. Because I know Disney
Sure.
Plus just put the movie, or they just added a new series to it on Disney Plus not too long ago. So, you know, the Willow series. I haven't watched it in a long time, but we used to watch it on TV all the time growing up. But it's been a long time, so I don't really remember much of it. But anyway, so what was I going to say now? So yeah, her name's Robin Shelby, just so you know. And other than that, those are the only 2 guests that I have for March so far. So the ball's in you guys' court. If you want to bring some guests on, here's your opportunity to for the March, because she won't be on until 7:30 our time. So
Okay.
you have a time to if you want to add a second guest, but have your guest be the first guest, because I have been talking to some publishers that to handle like publications and media requests for interviews, so it makes it easier, you know, so I don't have to try as hard to get a guest sometimes. There's a guy named Mark Pussy out of Atlanta, Georgia, who's been
Say that
Uh,
again?
Pussy. Yeah, it's not what you're thinking.
Okay.
It's
Was that a
Pussy. It's
French
like-
accent?
It could be. It's not Pussy or whatever. It's not Mark Pussy. Although that would be a kind of funny name.
Let's
Anyway.
Mark it with
uh,
what?
He lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and he handles all the press for some of these blues acts and rock and roll acts and people that are on his label. And so he's just one of those guys that can help people like us get guests a lot easier without actually trying hard enough to. I know that's kind of cheating sometimes, but it's like, hey, if I get a little help.
I sure wish I would have known about that shit 4 years ago.
Well, you know, I don't understand why you don't try to do that anyway on your shows. I mean, you have.
Yeah,
you're
I
the
didn't
boss.
know. I didn't know such a thing existed.
Yeah,
But then again, but my shows are almost all local, majority of them.
yeah,
But
you
yeah,
can-
that's some of the hardest part of my job is booking shows.
Oh, but I'm just saying, you know, like with your guests and stuff. I mean, You see what I do. I mean, I just go on
Yeah.
Facebook and ask, or I go
Yeah,
on
yeah.
websites. It's not that hard. I'm not just doing this for me. I'm doing this for all of you guys because I wanted to show you what I was all about. When it comes to taking this type of format seriously. Because people have been asking, like I said, at the casino and stuff, people come to me and there are some they've been watching. You
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
who these people are, but people have been watching.
That's okay.
So
Yeah.
makes me
Or
feel good that
sometimes
I
you might
come to
not
work.
want to know.
Yeah.
You're like a celebrity sometimes.
Well, it was weird at first, but I've gotten so used to it now. It seems to be more of an expected thing now. It's like, oh, I like that show you did on the podcast. You had a good guest, and we love your crew. And it's like, boy, you got something going. How come you're not a rich person by now? It's like, I don't know.
Because stars,
The stars haven't aligned, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, no, that's not what I mean. Sending stars doesn't pay our salaries. That's why we're not
Well,
rich.
and I can't even figure out how to get that working. It says I haven't activated, but
I know.
I look at my balance and it's nothing, $0. I get a little
Aw.
Facebook bonus, but I don't
Nobody
get
measuring
much
now.
with that, so it doesn't matter. What I was
Hmm?
gonna say too, just so you guys know that we are gonna start, I think we should start promoting the Patreon page that I have for our podcast because we have a lot of content and I know most of the stuff's been already on the YouTube site and everything, but if people find it in their hearts that they want to support something or donate to something, I do have a Patreon and I think I'm gonna start putting more stuff on there and I said that, if we make enough money, I'll split it with everybody. I don't care, you know. But it's up to it's up to the people watching to want to support us. I'm not gonna
Sell
force it.
yourself. Hey, I don't want any of it, but sell yourself some ads, dude. Let's promote it, sell it.
Well, that's what I
Say, hey,
was
we're
trying
gonna
to
take a
do.
break. You can talk about Carol's Cozy in Brooks, whatever.
Hey
You
now.
can talk about J Bobby's or J Bob. Talk about Bobby's,
Oh,
the juke joint.
yeah, there you
I
go.
mean,
Juke
ton of
Joint
things.
Radio. Yeah,
Yeah, he does
definitely.
that too at Pioneer. He should be doing, he should be doing all his own stuff. Hell with Pioneer,
We
but
should, well, yeah, he should have his own radio channel, but
anyway.
it costs
so
money.
It's just ideas. I mean, like I said,
Then
I'm
you got to
just.
deal with the FCC.
Yeah.
They're no
Well, I mean,
fun.
even with internet radio, it's like that's why I was just saying it was like with us at podcasts, and we're no different than most podcasts, but it's just that I think we have a blend of spice that's a little magical at times. So, I don't know what that spice is. It could just be marijuana, but I don't know.
Only a little bit. Oh,
or whatever. I don't know. Anyway,
social lubrication,
so yes, back to lubrication again. That's right. That's
vocal
the
and
word.
social,
That's the word of the week there. I'm surprised Sam hasn't made a joke.
Lubrication is the word of the week. Oh God, I
That's
thought we
right.
were professional around here.
Oh no, not at
I
all.
probably said it more than anybody else though. So.
I do have a pickup line that I found on Twitter, or not Twitter, it was an AI pickup line that I thought was pretty cute, pretty funny. I told this to some of my coworkers too, because it's like, why not do this at work, right? Just for the fun of it. Everybody laughed and thought I was stupid, but whatever. The pickup line basically goes, if you were a vegetable, you would be a cute cumber.
Oh my God.
Come on, that's funny, huh? When I heard that, I
Okay.
laughed.
Hey, what does the crotch of a 90-year-old woman smell like?
Oh God, what?
Depends.
Oh.
Come on now.
Well, it's a family show now. Geez, no more.
Well, we were talking about that earlier, and that joke popped in my head. Okay, I got a nicer one for you. So I saw this on Facebook earlier, and I thought it was freaking hilarious. You see a roll of toilet paper, and you see a toilet. The roll of paper looks at the toilet and says, "Man, you're full of shit." The toilet looks back and it says, "Shut up, asswipe."
Oh,
I thought you saw that.
God.
I thought you saw that. Did you see that cartoon thing that I sent a while back? Or
Which
whatever?
one? I don't
I
remember.
know
which one it
Eric
was.
saw that, and he laughed.
The toilet one.
Yeah, it was a toilet one. I've sent a few. I don't know. Earlier, I sent him one with the postmaster passing gas by the ring camera. I don't know. I thought that was kind of funny.
Oh, I saw that one. That was a good one. Every day on my show, I do a segment at the beginning of the show called Jokes My Neighbor Tells Me, because she tells me these corny jokes. She's an old school ranch, grew up on a ranch, and she laughs at these corny jokes and she snorts and they're funny. So, but today my joke was, what's the difference between a professional guitarist and a large pizza?
I don't know.
At least the large pizza can feed a family of 4.
Oh, jeez. Oh, don't tell that one to Bob there, Jesus.
I had a guitar player singer
good
on the
one.
show today. That's why I said that joke.
You didn't tell him that
No.
joke now, did you?
Oh, no. It's funny because it's true.
You know, well, it's just it's more for the fact that how hard they work and what you get, you know. You guys know what I mean. I thought it was
Yes.
pretty
oh,
funny.
Oh, yeah.
I'll give a
Absolutely.
shout out. I'm gonna give a shout out to my wife's birthday today. I've got to
Oh,
say
yeah.
that.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yes, happy birthday. Yeah. Because
February is a great month.
it's your wife's birthday, and then it's your was it Ashley's or daughter's birthday or daughter-in-law or something?
Daughter-in-law.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of crazy, huh?
Yeah, mine's next month. I'll be 66. You guys are talking about old
Yeah.
age before, you know.
Oh, sure. I know
See,
you.
I get looked at like I'm
Okay.
unprofessional for saying crush, but this is coming from the guy that sends us spark jokes all day, every day.
Yeah, because I'm not doing it on the air. I'm doing it behind the
Oh,
scenes. Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
you said
doesn't
this
matter.
is Facebook. We can say whatever we want.
I don't know. I mean,
Farts are funny.
Say the alphabet in Chinese. That's what you want to do. You know?
They're only funny until somebody traps you under the blanket.
So you lose an
Yeah,
eye.
pink elephant.
That's
Pink
right.
elephant.
Pink elephant. That's right. Well, you didn't like my cucumber joke, so I mean, Jesus, I worked hard on that. Well, anyway, so
Oh,
it's the
boy.
end of February. The month of March is upon us. I mean, you know, you're a sports guy there, Mr. Roberts. I mean, is this the month of the NCAA stuff and whatnot? Is that why they call it March Madness?
Yep. Yeah. Spring training just started now for baseball. Now the hockey tournaments, high school hockey tournaments. North Dakota just got done. Grand Forks or Minnesota's going on now. But yeah, the March Madness. The only thing I really care about March. I mean, I'm a sports guy, but just because of the pool I'm in. So I've got money on every single game, including the play-in games. So that's the only thing otherwise I don't pay that much attention. Basketball is my least favorite sport of all of them. I would rather watch synchronized swimming than some basketball games.
Wow. Okay. Wow. I'm
I-
surprised.
I'll
'cause
watch
I thought
college, but I'm not a big fan of NBA. The
Oh,
game
okay.
has just changed too much. So,
Sure.
but I'll
Well,
watch hockey all day long.
Is that what they say the NCAA is though for the like with March Madness? Because I think it has to do with basketball, as far as I'm aware. Like the
Yep,
tournaments
yeah.
or
March
whatever.
Madness is the basketball tournament. They start
Okay.
out with 66 teams to get into a 64 team tournament, and then they go from there.
Okay. Okay.
Oh,
'Cause it's like hyped all month. You know, I remember Roku even was trying to get people to sign up for like their package of what was it to watch all the March Madness games or whatever. They had an app for it.
oh yeah, yeah.
All right,
The
guys,
TV,
Yeah.
you know, is everybody complains about how these athletes get paid so much money. It's all because of TV. All of this, their salaries, it's crazy. But somebody's got to make the money, and would you rather give it to the athlete or would you rather give it to the owner of the team? But because of television, that's what's put everything through the roof.
Sure. Well, guys,
Hey, there's
gals,
our guest. Oh,
our
shut
guest
up.
has arrived. What's going on, Travis? How you doing? I see you trying to connect to the audio here.
He looks
Travis.
angry.
How's it going, man?
What's up, mate? You doing all right?
Oh, I'm doing all right. I'm doing really well. Welcome to Renegade Radio. We're pretty honored to have you out here.
Well, you know, as my father would say, you should be honored. Everybody's honored. I'm just kidding. No, thank you for having me. It's been, it's funny over the last, I kind of went low key for a while I was handling some personal issues, some mental health, some physical health. And, you know, I kind of got to this point, I was like, I think I'm ready to do this. And then somehow I did one yesterday that was supposed to be an hour. It lasted 2.5 hours. And I did like, it's like 2 a week now. And I never even said anything to anybody that I was ready, but they just started falling in my lap.
Jeez. Well, I appreciate the fact when I asked you or a few weeks ago about doing this, that you said no problem right away. I mean, you didn't even have to think about it. I'm just like, wow, that's pretty awesome. You know, so thank
My
you.
perspective has changed a lot on this over the last couple of years. And it's reflective, I think, of my dad's, you know, some things that my dad stood for when, you know, growing up. I've said this many times. It was really hard for me as a kid to share my father and the few moments I got with him. So I detested fans. Everywhere we went, whether it was the gas station, the grocery store, church, restaurants, there would end up being a line of people requesting an autograph, which at the time was very frustrating. But then, when he passed, I had just for the first time in probably 15 years or 10 years, gotten a social media page, and it was under my name, and I announced his passing, which led me to meeting a fan named Tyler Elenick, who now runs the social media pages for Dad, and I do the commentary and replies to fans for questions and things like that. But we converted it to his legacy page, and I still have some personal stuff, but it's very, very low key. But when he passed, I had no clue the amount of passion and love and admiration and just genuine stories that I found out about when he was on the road, and how he humanized fans, and I mean that in such a loving way. Stories of I've said this story several times, but it's just one of those ones that got me. Some kids wanted his autograph, and he came out of the show, and you can imagine as a heel, that you wouldn't expect him to be gracious, right? And so these kids came up for an autograph, and he said, "No, but I'll take you to pizza." So this is in New York. He takes them down, he sits them down, these two 15, 16-year-old kids, gives them, orders them pizza, and sits there and talks to them about life and respecting their parents. And he gave them workout routines. And then obviously he eventually, signed an autograph. But knowing that's what my father was doing on his time away began to make my life and some of the things I experienced and what became, loss, it became meaningful, and it gave it purpose. So, when he passed, and everybody goes back home, everybody goes back to work, everybody goes back to the normal routine. Well, I'm still suffering, and I was still, that was the most difficult thing I had ever experienced in my life. And it was fans like Adika Butler and, Tyler Elenick, Paris Charles from Australia. It was those folks that, even to this day, many of them have my phone number now, but to this day, they, and I mean regularly, would check in on me, not ask about Dad, not ask if I would sell anything, just genuinely concerned about how I was doing. And it hit me. And I don't know why it took that long, but it's probably because I'm so stubborn. I don't have the life I have without you. I wouldn't have the opportunities I had. I wouldn't have had the private school education that I had. I wouldn't have had, the opportunities to go to college. And, I can go down the line of things that they exist because of people like you, Sean, and Tanya, and Anthony, and Eric. Like, that doesn't exist otherwise. And so not only did they bring me through the most depressing part of my life, but it came to this realization that Oh my God, if not for those lines of people signing autographs, I don't have anything that I've had the opportunity to experience. I don't go to Australia. I don't spend time in LA and pursue acting. I don't grow up the way I did. So when people ask me to share, which, you know, being transparent, like it baffles me that anybody wants to hear much about my perspective. So the fact that people want to hear and want me to share, I'm grateful. Like I'm genuinely like, wash your feet kind of grateful that I get to be a part of this world, and that he meant so much to you that you care to hear my story.
Well, honestly, we're just grateful to have you on the show regardless, because, all the stuff that you're telling us, for most of us, will probably be new information, because you got stories that probably a lot of us don't know. Because I'm not going to say that I'm a huge, I mean, I know a lot about wrestling per se from what I've seen, and, and I know about your father, but I don't know everything. I don't know every little thing that he's done. So he sounded like a pretty cool guy, even outside the ring, even with the little story that you just said. I mean, you always kind of wonder what the guys on TV are like, or what they're really like, rather than just having the internet tell you. So when it's coming from a family member's perspective, this is awesome. So Travis, we're just honored to have you. What I want to do is what I always do when we have a guest on, and we've been having guests on, for quite a while. We had Keith Elliott Wienberg on last week, and then we had Vinny Barry on about a month ago. I guess you know all those guys, which everybody knows Keith. So
Yeah, Keith is somebody that is memorable. He has a different perspective in how he communicates. To be honest with you, I know more people than I can remember names. I have to remember where I met them to place it. But I have had the good fortune of meeting some really, really good people that are associated with wrestling. And, my dad never wanted me to go into it. So the fact that I've been able to meet the people I have that are endearing and they honor my dad the way they do, it's a cool experience.
well, that's awesome. I want to do a quick little introduction of all of my panel, because what I like to do is I like the guests to also, as we're going to learn about you and your father, but I want you to learn about us as well, because it's not just me. I might be the host and whatever, the guy behind everything, but it's all about my team. It's all about my crew. These are the guys and gal that have been with me for a long time, since August. And then everybody kind of just came, and I invited everybody to be on here. All these people have something to do with entertainment. They're great people, and I'm gonna kind of go one on one and let them introduce themselves to you, and we'll start with Mama T here, Tanya Nelson.
Hi, nice meeting you. I'm glad you're here. Your dad really does sound wonderful. Like it's not just a nickname. It sounds like it was his personality. Yeah, they call me Mama T. My boyfriend is Little Bobby, a blues musician. His last two albums, God Made Me Blue and The Killer Bee Sting, have been on the charts for the last 66 weeks. We own a bar here, and well, he owns the bar. I help him out. It's his name on the side of the building, Little Bobby's Bar and Grill in McIntosh, Minnesota. Other than being behind the bar for him once in a while and kind of be in the face, I also do a newsletter. I do, it's once a month now. I changed the format. It was twice a month, but I do highway stories, which is usually like road trips with Bobby. Then there's an artist, a featured artist. We take whatever kind of artists I choose to interview. The same with the Veterans Corner. I'll either do a story on a vet or someone who's helping vets.
I love that.
And then apparently I'm on a podcast somewhere too. I forget the name of that.
Of course you do. Of course you do. I got the guy whose name is Laura, but his real name is John Roberts, or Robert Raymond, but whatever you want to call him. Everybody loves Raymond, so hey, that's Laura and Laura. Go ahead.
Hey, Travis, nice to meet you, man. I'm glad you're on the show. I'm John. I'm 4 decades of radio. I still do some radio, sports play-by-play hockey. I have a podcast company now, where we do about a ton of different shows. I'm also a racetrack announcer at a couple of different dirt tracks around the area here. And yeah, kind of hooked up with these guys. I've known Mama T for a while. Got to meet Sean here not that long ago, and the rest is history. Now I'm part of Renegade Radio, and I'm not the wrestling fan now that I was back in Mr. Wonderful's day. Back in the old days of AM radio, and when these guys were traveling all over the country, I got to interview and hang out and spend time with a lot of these guys, you know, after they were done wrestling at the local frickin' VFW or whatever gymnasium. But so yeah, I'm just glad to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. And you don't have a voice for radio at all.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, geez, Louise, you sounded like you were going to do an intro to a movie.
He's got a face for radio though.
Hey, you have to
Yeah.
have a voice.
Exactly.
Did you ever see his face?
Yeah, he definitely has a face for radio.
He's got his back
Yeah,
to
I know.
the camera, you know.
Oh, Jesus. guys.
Hey, I'm just glad I had something to fall back on after my modeling career ended. Okay.
I remember when I was a kid, I told my mom I wanted to be a comedian. She said, "You don't like food?" And I said, "What are you talking about? Comedians make a lot of money." And she goes, "The good ones do."
Yeah.
My mom said the same thing. She said, "Baby, you know what? Yeah, the last half hour, I've almost peed my pants twice. I've been laughing so hard." She said, "You know what you should do when you grow up? You should do stand-ups." You know what I did? I stood up.
Wow, I didn't know we were doing comedy hour already. Wow.
Wow.
That's why you weren't a comedian either.
The next one is Eric's iPhone. We call him Antique Man. Go ahead, Eric.
Oh, thanks. Hi, Travis. Nice to meet you. I'm the old rock and roll singer songwriter from the Midwest, inducted in the South Dakota Rock Hall of Fame back in 2018, and owned a business all those years as well. That's kind of the short story of it. I'm sure interested in your story. Oh, and one other thing, Travis, if I could just give you my email so you could send me your autograph.
Are you being serious?
Well, I would like your autograph, but you had said you had said you didn't really, early in life, you didn't want to get autographs.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You know, what's funny is growing up, I remember being at the Special Olympics. And people were, and I was like 9, and people were asking for my autograph, and
Sure.
you know, it didn't connect, but it does happen very often, not very often, but it happens often that people on Facebook will ask for an autograph, and I'm like,
Sure.
do you mean me, or do you think my dad's alive? Because I'm confused, although I have beautiful handwriting.
Oh, that's great.
Okay.
Well, Eric,
Sure, it's mini wonderful.
Antique Man lives in Texas, so that's like a wrestling territory right there. You know, in the big
Yeah.
state of Texas there.
It's
'Cause,
40
the
miles north of Dallas.
Yeah, and the Iron Claw movie is what comes to mind because it's finally out on digital now. It'll be coming out on Blu-ray here at the end of next month. But the next one is Anthony, but we call him Mad Dog. Go ahead.
Hey, nice to have you on. I was a professional wrestler for 20 years. Me and my brother Johnny is Screaming Sam down there in the corner. I wrestled in all the local promotions in Pittsburgh. I just recently was inducted into the KSWA Hall of Fame.
Congratulations.
With Bruno and with George the Animal Steel, a bunch of guys. There's 30 guys that your father, I know, either beat up or was tangling with in there. I never got to meet your father personally, which I regret. I mean, I've met the Bushwhackers and Nikolai Volkov and Coco Beware and Jimmy Snuka, but never met your father. I mean, it hurt me. It does. But I'm glad you're on today, and I'm real excited to hear what you got to say. I got my Bruno shirt on. And
Awesome.
I'll give you my autograph, okay? I'll send you mine.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Worth $500,000 there, I tell you. Anyway.
Yeah.
And
Just
well,
go sell it on eBay.
well, hey, here's somebody's autograph you might want. It's Screaming Sam, ladies and gentlemen.
Nah, maybe one time, but not now. I'm Screaming Sam. I did a tribute to Sam Kinison for years and years, and had my own internet TV show, radio show, podcast back in the day. And that's about. I don't want to take up too much time because I'd rather hear you than me. So
Well, I did a little bit of an impression of Sam Kinison when I was in my early 20s, but I won't
Oh, did
discuss
you?
that.
John,
Maybe I
Huh?
didn't get that. Maybe I didn't lay that as thick as I meant to. Like I did a little impression of Sam
Oh,
Kinison.
Oh, okay.
As a kid.
So we got you.
yeah,
Sorry.
I don't do that. I just like the way it smells.
That's me.
I hate that stuff. It just
Hey, there's
smells
my
so
Sam.
good.
brother.
That's what Sam looks like right there, or the one he used to look
Yeah,
like.
that's amazing that that's you, Sam.
Yeah.
That is weird. That still creeps me out, but it's a cool
Especially what I look like now. I don't look nothing like it.
picture.
You
Well,
look
I
like
mean, what do you look like older, like we talked about,
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the crew, and then I'm last but not least, I'm Frankie Slauson. I'm the guy that got a hold of you, and I have always loved broadcasting. I've always loved entertainment. I've had a chance to interview probably well over 500 different type of entertainers over the course of time since 2006. Uh, I'm not anybody famous, but I've had a lot of fun interviewing famous people, and it's got me to thinking about these people done amazing things, and yes, they're just regular people, just like your father, just a regular person, but he chose a path, like a lot of these people have chose a path to go somewhere and to be something that bigger than himself. And he chose professional wrestling. And he probably didn't know how big of a star he was going to become because a lot of people don't know and probably had no clue at the time, and how much of an innovator he was going to be as far as changing wrestling forever, especially with being part of the huge main events that he's been a part of. Uh, I just get fascinated by stuff like that. It doesn't give me a big head or anything about that. I just enjoy the fact that I've had some success, of being able to interact with people that gave me a chance, and now we got Renegade Radio, and we've had a lot of people that gave us a chance, and it's been working out pretty well. So we're honored to have you here, Travis, because
Thank
to
you. I'm
me, I
honored to
feel
be
like
here.
your story alone is just like, okay, you got a famous father, but you know we want to know about you too. It's not just a one-way street on this show. We want to know everything. So tell us everything. How much time you got?
You really don't want me to, because that I'm telling you that the yesterday we scheduled an hour and they kept asking, and I have to reel myself in, which is not that easy. So I will do my best to articulate a story that is not long form, but we'll say medium form.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, let's start off with a simple question then, and we won't keep you on too long. We
No, you're
we
good.
appreciate
You're
your
good.
time.
Whatever you guys want.
We
I'm here to
normally
dance.
like to give an hour to guests, unless we have more than one on, but we really are our only guest for tonight. So, to start off, we'll just do a simple question. Uh, Growing up, with having your dad be a wrestler, I mean, like what did it? How long did it take you to realize that your dad was a star on TV, or that he was a professional wrestler, like when you were like growing up and stuff?
It was very early on, and so I was born in 78, and we lived in multiple territories before I was the age of 5, and we settled down and moved into Riverdale, Georgia. But it was probably when I was 5 or 6, it runs together, and it was when we would go places, even at a very young age, and people were responding and calling him by Mr. Wonderful, which the story behind that, he was actually he went by OP. If you've seen any of his wrestling tights and matches from the 70s and early 80s, and they described him as an outpatient. That was what OP stood for, because he was crazy when he got in the ring. He was also crazy outside the ring, but his intensity and his motor was something that most people couldn't emulate if they tried. If I were to compare him to a modern celebrity as far as his work ethic, drive, and just level of intensity, the person I think of is like Dave Goggins. That would even some of the things Dave Goggins says, and Dad would get up and he would hit it hard. That he was doing ice baths and saunas before people realized it had any impact on longevity, and even including just we weren't allowed to wear shoes a lot. You know, when we came outside, he didn't know about grounding, but he knew it made him feel better. So it's amazing that he didn't have this level of education that would have instilled in him all of these properties, but you know, somehow, some way, he had a complete understanding. To this day, I've yet to understand how he learned all of that, but I was very young. I went to a private school, Montessori school, and I was, you know, up until about fifth grade, until I went to a different school. And, you know, so 5 or 6 years old, I was on a baseball team, and we ended up making it to not something like the Little League World Series, but we did have a team from Mexico come in, and teams from all over came in, and we had like kind of a, you know, small little league series. And when Dad would come to the games, I would constantly be looking to see if he was watching, and you would see a line of, and it wasn't kids, it was adults. Like, don't kid yourselves. Remember, this is the early 80s, and kids weren't allowed to watch wrestling like they would be today. You had young fans, but they were generally, you know, 12 to 15, not 6 or 7 years old. My friends didn't care. They just knew him as Paul. But at that age, you would see a line of people. And so his level of fame was really introduced to me more so because I had to share him. And I had to share him everywhere we went. He was very recognizable. Obviously, his hair and his look, and I can't think of anybody that really looks so much like my father, unless you include He-Man. And you know, somebody of that size and stature. Dad had the body of a Greek god, if not bigger. And you know, it's not like he could hide anywhere he went. You could see him from across the room. You know, he's 252 pounds, and you know, I think he was listed at 6 foot, but you know, he's 5'11" and a half in my book. And he always hated when I said that. But you know, it was, you know, being a child and being very, very small in comparison. And back then, you know, the majority of people in this country were thin. So, you know, at least 82.2%, if I'm not mistaken. It wasn't like we could go through a crowd, you know, and I used to joke, I remember joking around at a very young age, because he would have to, you know, houses were built different, doorways were smaller, and he would have to turn sideways to go through rooms. So I can remember one time we were at Kroger of all places, and I came out of the grocery store, and I remember just walking around like this, kind of imitating next to him, and he started to laugh. But that was really what it looked like to me when he tried to make his way through a normal crowd or even a normal doorway. He didn't have to duck like a basketball player. He had to turn sideways.
Yeah, he was a big man. And you could always tell by that jaw who he was. I mean, that look of just pure strength. And then when he talked, he scared the
Rock
crap.
Hudstone.
Oh, my close friend Kevin used to describe his voice. He's like, it sounds like a chainsaw, you know, and you know, in fact, when he would, I used to imitate him, and you know, because we ribbed each other all the time. I'd be Rhonda. That's what it sounded like. And then my mom's name. That was the only thing I really understood in the sentence. But yeah, the only person that I can remember resembling my father was Jack Youngblood, the football player.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And we were in an airport one time, and I was really young, and somebody came up with their kid and thought he was Jack Youngblood and asked for his autograph, and Dad signed it as Jack Youngblood. And when he left, I was like, Dad, why'd you do it? And he went, you know, that was kind of his, you know, I just ran with it. Seemed like fun. And I'm like, oh, okay, you know, kayfabe is really alive right now. But yeah, it was at a very early age. And in fact, the only, I would say, anytime I had to say my name, you know, Orndorff, the look came. You know, it was a very obvious look of like, are you related to? And you know, it got to the point where when I would come in a room and somebody would go, Orndorff? I go, yes, he's my dad. And I just keep walking. But you know, the funny part of this is as I got older, you know, I would keep saying that people were like, I just wanted to know how to pronounce your name. Like they weren't, you know, it was after he was out of wrestling, but it had been so ingrained in me to just respond almost as a defensive mechanism. So I didn't have to go into a lengthy conversation of whether or not I was going to go into wrestling. It was that point where, you know, Orndorff didn't mean what it did as a child, and I couldn't escape it. You know, there's no way for me to get around it, even when I played football and, you know, different sports throughout my, you know, throughout my youth. It was, you know, I've said this, but, you know, if your last name was Smith or your last name was, you know, Hulk Hogan's kids were last name were Balea, you could escape in a crowd. But with my last name, I was having to confront it because it's so unique.
Yeah, it definitely is unique. I mean, you know, like I want to make sure that I spelt it right because I thought I spelt it right at first, and then it's like, nope, this is not right. I gotta go back and look and see what mistake I made.
I can't tell you how many times that I you know, you're on the phone and I'm spelling it. I'm like, here I go. And I'm finally like, O is in open, R is in Randy, Frank, because inevitably it's going to end with SS, no matter how well I pronounce it.
It's almost like Arn, like ARN, you know, instead of Orn, but it's Arn or it's Orn, yeah. So I don't know, that's crazy. Well, I mean, you know, and I suppose in the days of the territory days, I mean, you know, we were talking about like the hype of the Iron Claw movie. Was your dad good friends with Devon Eriks at all?
He wrestled him in the late 80s, Kerry, before he passed. You know, so for a timeline, I was born in Tampa, and my dad wasn't, by the way. He was born in Winchester, Virginia. But he went by Tampa because he lived there his entire life. He went to the University of Tampa. His name before Mr. Wonderful was the Brandon Bull. He grew up in Brandon, Florida, where my mom grew up. And we lived in, and I'm gonna see if I can remember, we lived in Georgia, Pensacola, Tampa, Pensacola, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Baton Rouge, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Georgia, and there was somewhere else that I can't recall. He wasn't in the Texas territory to my knowledge. You know, but he bounced around. Oh, Memphis, it was Memphis, it was Tennessee. So we hit and lived in all those states before I was 5 years old. I don't really have much recollection of it, but then again, I don't really remember last week that well anymore either.
Mama T, do you have a question for Travis?
Yes. So, you know, Travis, you were talking about how when you were younger, you kind of resented the fact a little bit that your dad was gone so much and, you know, he was spending time with all these other people. I was wondering if there was any point in time where he got like maybe hurt so bad or had a vacation or something that where he came home and spent a significant amount of time with you. Did you ever have like any serious injuries or anything like that from wrestling?
Yeah, well, let me preface it with, I spent a ton of time with my dad. I would travel with him for weeks at a time, even at a very, very early age. And I grew up in a dressing room. And so when he was with WCW, it was easy because there were so many things in Atlanta and Florida. You know, even when I was 17, 18 years old, they were filming at MGM Studios. You know, they would film the TV there, and we were there for like 2 months in a cabana. And, you know, it wasn't anything for me to just go down and go, my dad's Paul Orndorff, and walk in the back and hang out, you know, back there and talk to him. And then, but there's pictures of me on planes. You know, my mom didn't travel with him really at all. I had an older brother, and that's a whole nother story. Or I have an older brother. He's 10 years older than me. And but there's pictures of me with this beautiful head of hair, And,
I had that too at once.
listen, I wouldn't trade it, but I can tell you when my dad got cancer and, I came home, I was devastated, and I was living in Indiana at the time. I came home and I was like, Dad, what are you worried about? He's like, I don't want to lose my hair. And I'm like, that's worse than death. I mean, I'm in the room right now. What is it like? It's not that bad. But so when I was 13, I went to Australia with him for 3 weeks. But I can remember, back then taking a kid out of school didn't mean anything as long as you told him what was going on. But I would go on the road with him regularly. I can remember being up there. There's pictures of me with him in New York, him holding me on my shoulder with, I can't remember the bodybuilder's name, Mike Katz, I think. But there was tons of times that I spent, but they weren't at home. They were out on the road, and that was at least a yearly, if not kind of a regular occurrence. But he did get injured. Most people know about his right arm atrophy. And ironically, I have almost the same injury, but worse. I should have wrestled with all the surgeries I've had to have. But I started having some health issues when I was 9 years old, and only in the past year have I found out and gotten a diagnosis that adds up to why I started getting sick then. But he had hurt himself at WWF. He had worked with his financial advisor at the time and decided to open a bowling center, and he refused to get the surgery. People know that he left and saw the arm atrophy, but they didn't really understand, like, back then those surgeries, they're not what they are today. I had a spinal fusion last January, and they went through the front and the back, and I walked out, and I woke up 45 minutes after the surgery, and I left an hour 15 after. Now that's not normal. Most the doctors looked at me like I was crazy, and I'm like, look, I got to go to the bathroom. I'm not sitting here until you're ready. They were like, well, you're not supposed to be up till 4 o'clock. Well, sorry, my bladder said different. But I got really, really sick when I was 9, and I went from 82 pounds to 52 pounds. I couldn't walk. I couldn't use my hands. He had to carry me everywhere. And I mean, literally carry me everywhere. And so the most time I spent with him was during that time and then after, because he left the WWF, and he left because of his injury. But the reason he really didn't have the surgery is because he was so prideful about his body. He didn't want a scar. And that's the God's honest truth. That was really his motivation. His thought process being that he could outwork it, and
Rub some
but
dirt
I-
on it.
I'm glad he didn't have it then. He ended up having his, C2 through C7 taken out. They put in a cadaver's vertebrae and a titanium rod in the late 90s. But he was he would sleep in the hospital with me because they didn't know if I was going to make it. And he had a cot there and would sleep in the bed with me in the room every once in a while and they would allow it. And I think the doctors were just afraid of him. But that time frame from me being 9 to 13, he was home a lot because we had the bowling center, and he didn't miss a baseball game. He didn't miss a wrestling match. He was, even when he was on the road, at least from my opinion is, when he was on the road, he still felt present. And when he would come home, let's say he was home for 2 days in a row and it was a Thursday, he kept me out of school on Friday and I hung out with him all day. And it, my dad wasn't there every night for dinner. Thank God, because God, we had to eat so healthy. It was unbearable. Like no salt on the table, no butter on the table. We were eating white fish with lemon wedges. The truth is that I hated as a kid, but I eat like that now. Like I probably eat, just as healthy, if not healthier than he did. But you know, the times when he was home, he was very, very, very present. You know, I'd go to the gym with him. I would go to the doctor with him. Whatever he was doing, we were side by side. And that was something that, you know, it might be 2 days here. It might be 2 weeks here. It might be like I spent, you know, a month with him in Australia, just the two of us sharing a hotel room. I would say that his being gone made it hard for me as I grew up, because my parents adopted my brother's my brother's kids, my dad's grandchildren. So when he was away, I had to be dad, and you know, there was extended periods of time where I was taking care of these three girls in many ways. And so it became a joke when he did come home that we would spend all this time together, but he called me Caesar because I was telling everybody what to do. And I'm like, you're not here. You know, somebody's got to manage this chaos. But yeah, he was away a lot, but I don't know that many fathers took the amount of time. Like, you might see your dad for an hour a night and then he's in front of the news or whatever. The time we spent together, we were like, you know, inseparable. And that relationship stayed that way until he passed, you know, until the last couple of years when I was going through some things and, you know, COVID happened. I would say, you know, until after he had cancer, his brain started to go, but I don't know many days that we didn't talk on the phone, you know. And when my oldest Tyler was young, you know, he's the one on a couple of days a week that would come get him from school. And he still lived in Fayetteville. My ex-wife worked in Fayetteville, so she'd come by and swing and pick him up. So there's pictures of him with my nephew Chandler, and he spent that kind of quality time with him as a grandfather. It was, you know, dad's priority was always his family. What he did was for us. And because of the time we spent together, it didn't bother me he was away as much as when he was home, I did not want to share him with anybody.
Well, thank you for that.
No, that was a good response.
Hey, Travis, how tall are you? And like, you look like you lift weights yourself, right? I mean, do you work out?
This comes natural. What are you talking about? So I was 5'9". I'm now 5'8". After a couple of surgeries and some neck compressions and spine compressions. I'm about, I think I weighed in yesterday. I was about 170. I'm in the middle of a fast. I'm on day 5. But I'm usually between 165 and 170. I worked out. So I never worked out, because when I did in high school, you know, when I went and worked out with dad, it was one more rep. And that was my first day back in the gym. And I hated working out with him. Like, that video of him taking people to the gym and that's method acting. He might have ratcheted up and said some mean names, but going to the gym with him was intense. I kid you not. I did not work out in my 20s. I just drank a lot. And when I was 30, it was when I was like, all right, it's time to change this. And so I worked out pretty heavy for a period of there. But I'll tell you that a couple of years after he passed, was the first time I had drank in a couple of years. And I drank for about a year after he passed. Just sheer utter depression, my identity. I lost part of my life when he passed. And I think everybody feels that way about their father, but you know, in many ways I was Mr. Wonderful Son and I was Travis, and those were two separate things, because Mr. Wonderful Son had to play kayfabe. Travis had to live life, and those, you know, conflicted. But I do a lot of push-ups. But I had, when I had the spinal fusion, I have my joints and my sacrum have deteriorated. So I am actually allowed to skip leg day.
Okay, there you go.
So you were pretty
Every
much,
man's dream.
you were pretty much mini Mr. Wonderful. Like you always, everybody's got a mini me as a child. You were the mini Wonderful.
Well, I didn't look anything like him, and I, dark black hair, and like I did my DNA, and I'm like 82% Italian, right? And Orndorff is clearly not Italian, but it is from the northern hills of Italy and Germany. And but in my high school class ring, I had, engraved, people put their names, and I put Little Mr. Wonderful.
Ah, there you go. Did your dad ever decide that he wanted to do anything else other than wrestle? Because it sounds like he probably would have been a good bodybuilder if he, was interested in that alone, other than wrestling or whatnot.
Well, there wasn't any money in bodybuilding. There isn't any money in it, that just the lifestyle and the cost that goes into that to be the world's strongest man, and the number of calories you have to eat. I will say that Lee Haney, Hugh Kirby, who's my spiritual mentor and friend, was also in the gym, and so worked out with Dad, and was, we went to church together, and I remember Hugh pulling me aside one time, and this was, the last couple of years, and he's like, Lee and myself and your dad worked out, in like the late 80s. And Lee looked at your dad and goes, that man needs to kiss his mama, because I don't know where else he got those genes. So there, Arnold was very complimentary of him, and even talked about that. But so when dad played football at the University of Tampa, got inducted to the Hall of Fame there. He went to the New Orleans Saints, hated being away from home, did not like the things they did to rookies. And that's really why he left it. He just kind of was like, I'm done. And he did a little football, and my dad and my mom got married at 18. And my brother was born, shortly after, kind of a ready, fire, aim wedding. And my dad went to go work for my grandfather. And he worked for MetLife. And so Dad was selling insurance. And one Saturday morning, Dad was watching TV and obviously frustrated with trying to do something with his mouth and mind and personality. People don't understand, my dad's was very introverted. The Mr. Wonderful persona in my mind was always an identity to protect that inner child and that introvert. Now, the crazy thing is if you ever met him, people to this day be like, I was friends with your dad. And I'm like, no offense, but like, he had like 3 friends and I was his main one. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, cause he called me and we talked, most every day on the phone, even when I wasn't around. But my grandfather, when my dad said they were watching wrestling, my dad goes, I can do that. And my grandfather was great personality, and just had a silver tongue, and knew somebody, was always connected and networked. He had served in the military, and so that world allows you to access people, especially back then. And so he knew about the wrestling school where Hiro Matsuda was at. So he made a phone call, and dad got an audition. And that's how Dad got into wrestling. But the reality is he was about to get fired from MetLife because he was horrible at it. So when people ask, did Dad chose wrestling, I'm like, I don't think Dad had a choice. That it was either, go back to football, which after the University of Tampa, he hated football. Like, he had done his entire life, he was done. And but they didn't pay football players back then either. So the desire to take that on was for what, $26,000 a year, and then you go get another job in construction the rest of the year. But wrestling, I've always said that wrestling was not a choice. It was an outlet and to be able to get rid of some of that aggression, to get rid of that energy and that level of intensity. There was no other thing he could do. I don't know that it was a choice. I think it was divine intervention.
Oh, probably.
Wasn't he a hell of a shot putter back in college?
He was a hell of a shot putter, discus thrower, broad jumper. He had
fat man, we call him in track.
He had state records in track and field in Florida high school, in Florida high school for the state of Florida. I think the last one was broken in 2002. So he held records, for years. If you go back and watch some of his matches in the late 70s, some of the acrobatic moves he does are, for me, I'm like, that didn't even, like, they're doing some of this now. Like he would, somebody would do, bend over to do, then they would do the leapfrog over and he would do a flip over him. And, he was a freak. He was a athletic, God-given, absolute freak of nature. Anything that you asked him to do with his body, he in fact, he was a better baseball player than he was football player. He always regretted not sticking with baseball. He could do things athletically, and across the board. I believe, and not because he wasn't great at one sport, I will always believe he is the best athlete to have ever entered professional wrestling. Maybe not the best football player, maybe not the best baseball player, but he could do it all. And that all around kind of athlete, his limber, he was limber. He just was a freak.
So going into the main event of WrestleMania 1, because as everybody knows, he was involved in the first main event of WrestleMania 1. I'm pretty sure, or really, how big of an impact did that have on not only his character as a professional wrestler, but like, I'm sure financially at the time, even though it was WrestleMania and everyone played a big gamble on WrestleMania, how much did that help you and your family, or be more well known than you were prior, as far as like, let people know, hey, my dad's gonna be in the main event of WrestleMania. Of course, you were a little kid then, but I'm sure somebody in your family let your family know about what's going on.
Well, we went to the Omni, which is in downtown Atlanta, which was the Atlanta Hawks Stadium at the time, and we watched it on, because it was closed circuit television, and so we went there to watch it, and that place was packed, like completely packed. The thing about what you got to understand is Dad, from when you go from territory to territory, depending on the promoter, it got very cutthroat, and you wouldn't know from week to week if you didn't perform, if you would be headlining the next week and get paid. And, you were, bouncing around. And so it wasn't so much that he went to WWF, he went to the New York territory. That was where he started, was the New York territory. It wasn't, what it would become, and that gamble that Vince made to be, a national brand. And, there was a time when Vince McMahon Sr. reached out and wanted him to come up, and Dad didn't think he was ready. And so it was, I think I was 6 or 7 when WrestleMania happened. And that, that age, that time frame, and how it started to be, he was more recognizable after it, just because the TV shows were then on USA, they weren't just local shows anymore. But, in comparison, when we would go visit, say, Philadelphia, during that run with Hogan, after Dad had turned on him, or even during, I was really young, and we would leave, and Dad would have a towel over his head, and they would take us in the back of an ambulance or the back of a police car, because we couldn't park there. We would park down the road, and fans found us, and we were trying to leave, and he put me in the floorboard of the car because they were trying to tip the car over. And that was what, everybody knows Philadelphia fans are just completely nuts, and they own it, honorably. But the way that the world saw wrestling in New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, it was different than everywhere else, and so there were times people would say something to Dad because he was a heel when we were out and about in Georgia. But we lived in a small town. We went to a local church, and people kind of knew that was not who Dad was. And those that were huge into it were, he was intimidating to approach. Like, people, you could see, I'm not even kidding. I can remember people starting to cry, like grown men, and they would be shaking, asking, and Dad would, just as sweet as could be, do it. And especially if you were a veteran, he would, he would pay for your meal. He would make a point to thank him. So, that you had to kind of had some cojones to approach my father during certain periods of his career, because you just didn't know that he was like that. It wasn't till he started traveling in his 50s and 60s to these different events to sign, that people were like, oh my God, that is the nicest human being. Like, your dad is so sweet. Everybody that's ever, I've never gotten a bad comment on all of the social media pages we've had that they had a bad interaction with my father. Only one person who was in wrestling that he had a bad interaction because he chose to go to WWE instead of stay at WCW. My dad thought he was giving up an opportunity. And that's a private story, but every interaction anybody's ever had with my dad was loving and compassionate. Even, everybody knows about the Vader story of them getting in a fight. What most people don't know is those two, in in my dad in his mid-60s before Vader passed, they hugged it out and like made amends and went out together on a stage at a show. I think it was in North Carolina. So you could go back to when my dad got the Iron Mike Iron Mike Sharp Award at Cauliflower Alley Club. And I was drinking at the time and was completely inebriated because we were in Las Vegas. And I give my speech and I come off and I'm just having fun with it. And Dad goes up and he's in tears, and I said, I did say some things that were very admirable and loving about my dad, but his reaction, his emotions, he wore them on his sleeve. And he was like, no joke, as a kid, it was very common for me to sleep in the bed with my parents and, fall asleep on this rock hard bicep. And I kid you not, it was rock hard.
No pillow.
None. But, Dad would have, was a cuddler and I would sit in his lap. And I can remember being 19 years old, 20 years old. And
You better be lucky you didn't break in half.
Yeah, he wouldn't me, but it was, I remember one time we went to the airport and I was dropping him off. So I was 16 and I don't know why, but there was an older man and his son hugged him and kissed him on the cheek. And Dad said to me, don't ever be embarrassed to love your father. And so that was, it's obviously I'm 45 now. I'm that way with my own children. And that was something that it was easy to do because we always had an affectionate relationship. But when he said that, it's something that like, it stuck with me to always make sure, like I'd kiss him goodbye and be like, bye mom, and walk out the front door. And so, my nieces that he raised, I call them my sisters, but the oldest, Brandy, we all had that experience with him. He was so loving and tender and warm.
Can I ask you a question? I know when I sold a storyline, like me and my brother, You know, my son used to take the heat for it when one day my brother turned against me, and we're in a church hall and these people are spitting on him, and his son wouldn't ride home with him. I'm like, how did that affect you when you were a kid, when your dad turned heel? At one point, your dad played that hill thing so good. When he walked out, you didn't even have to talk and everybody was shitting their pants. You know what I
Oh
mean?
man, I love like that's everybody says what's your favorite thing about your dad when you wrestled him? Like it wasn't the wrestling, it was his entrance and the way he would wave you off after
Yeah.
like he
And he
just
throws sweat at
so
him.
throw the
thing.
sweat on him. He was so dismissive. He would walk so slow down to the ring. I mean, some of those intros, and like I remember there was one match with Roddy, they didn't wrestle for 30 minutes. It was all entrances and he'd slide behind the rope. And the level of patience to piss people off, let me assure you, he had it later on too, because he could piss me off very quickly from being that way.
We were taught that in wrestling school. They said the more people you piss off to the ring, the less they're going to see when you mess up. Or I wasn't a real good ring technician. I was one of them lugheads, just throwing people around. So if I pissed everybody off going to the ring, I didn't have to worry about wrestling because they hated me so much. They didn't care about wrestling,
Dad had stories. I remember when I was 21 and we went and I'll come back and answer the question, but I remember when I was 21, I finally was like, Dad, cause you get to the age where like we can go a little bit deeper than some of the conversations we had. And I was like, where'd you get your scars? I'm like, did you cut yourself? He's like, that came from a grandmother in Shreveport, Louisiana. She hit me over the head with a beer bottle. There was times where he got so much heat, they were throwing darts into the ring, and barely missing him. I will say, so my brother being 10 years older and in high school, all of his friends were wrestling fans. Man, I went to a private school. It was, I went to my class, in 6th grade. That was when he had left WWF and had the bowling center. So the experience they had with my dad would have completely overshadowed anything they ever saw in the ring. My friends that came over, they watched wrestling, but they were like, I know Paul, because my dad was a sweetheart, he was very approachable and soft, even if his voice, could shake a rafter on its own.
Boys, I didn't look at you.
Oh yes. And I got that look. That I got the look of shut the F up, which, if I didn't see the look, I was told kayfabe, which also meant shut the F up, so I would say I never experienced that with my friends. I never experienced that because of my age. I think had a lot to do with it. And I was really kind of, siloed in this small world. But my brother caught it. And so my brother got into a lot of fist fights, in high school and he was a brawler himself. My brother's 6'3", like 245. I didn't see that. I didn't experience it. The majority of the flack I got was actually from adults. It wasn't from kids.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When we'd be on the road, people would say things to me about my dad and, what a piece of, whatever he is. And, that was, I can remember people saying, I hate your father, like straight to my face. Even like as I got older, that was not an uncommon sentiment from people that didn't know him, but they were huge wrestling fans and happened to have met me somewhere. Like I'm talking, into my early 20s that people would walk up to me and, find out who my dad was and say horrible things to me about him. And I'd be like, I got to the point where I was like, okay, and I'd move on. But I would say that you would be surprised how many adults crossed ethical lines to approach a child. Looking back, I didn't think anything of it then. It was, it was par for the course. But like looking back, I'm like, man, what kind of an adult does that to a child? But that paid the bills and that meant he did his job really, really well.
Did you ever sit down and just watch the shows, like watch wrestling with your dad on it?
No, I'm not joking. I didn't sit in the stands of a wrestling match until I was 23 years old. I was in the back the entire time. And I remember watching one wrestling match or two actually, off the top that I have. Now I've watched some since then on YouTube, and people send me stuff, and we have Dad's YouTube page with all of his matches. So I've sat down and watched some of them. I'm so attention deficit. I get about 5 minutes in and I'm like, all right, I got enough, and I move on. But I do remember the only time I ever remember sitting down and watching a match that I wasn't with Dad was he was wrestling Arn Anderson. I think it was Clash of the Champions. He won the TV title, and that's the one time that I remember knowing what it was, but I was still on the edge of my seat. But all the matches and things I watched were in the back room on one of the prompters, and hearing guys talk about the match and spots and where the camera was. And kind of dissecting each other, watching. I've watched Dad watch matches. I went to the power plant, and again, when he was an agent, I was on the road. I'd see him kind of dissect a match with people. So, having seen it from that perspective, I took my son to a WWE show, which is the second time I've ever sat in the stands. But I took my oldest because I wanted him to know, hey, this is what your grandfather did. I know, but this is what the energy's like. This is what the fans are like. I took both my kids with me because I would drive Dad to autograph sessions. So they got to experience that side. But I did take him to a show. And while I was watching it, I could hear Dad's voice in the back of my head that, you missed that spot, or you missed the TV spot. They had to move it, but not that I know anything about wrestling, other than I know I do know what technique looks like, and what a skill set looks like to be able to wrestle, because I know what wrestling moves look like. But that would be the extent of it.
We just had, WWE just had their Elimination Chamber pay-per-view over in Australia. Was your dad pretty big overseas?
Oh yeah,
China.
we went to Australia for that month, and he wrestled it. It was a promotion there for there, and there was like a phenomenal turnout. You'd be surprised. The wrestling fans there's nothing like them. I can't compare that type of loyalty, commitment, love, respect, admiration. I don't think NFL fans, they like the product, but it's, to me, like, I can remember, this was recent, I went to an independent show and with Big Boss Man's daughter and her family, and it was up near my house, and I was like, yeah, I'll go, and I go there, and DDP was signing autographs, and there was a line of people that were waiting in line, and I was standing with his wife, Paige, and there was one fan there, and she was waiting to get this autograph. And I looked at Paige and I said, I have never in my life been that excited or happy ever about anything. Like the joy, the sheer joy and innocence on her face. Like, if I could have captured, like, and I'm a happy dude and I'm an intense dude, I have never, ever, ever been that excited to meet another human being. In fact, I've met so many famous people. I have 2 autographs, 2. And Reggie White and Gary Carter. And Gary Carter was because I was a Mets fan, and he hit a home run ball and signed it for me and sent it to me.
When you were and your dad, like in a time now, like with The Rock, and Stone Cold, they all got movie deals. Your dad ever got hit up for a movie deal?
Oh yeah, he was
used wrestlers for the movies, but he was
Vince would give him the time off to do it. He was supposed to be, there was 2 that he was supposed to be in Rambo 2 as the the Russian that Sylvester Stallone fought. In fact, he went out and interviewed and hung out with, I think Bridget Nielsen was his wife at the time, spent time with her and the assistant, and they took him around town. And I wanted to pursue acting myself, and I did acting, and I grew up with some people that are now very famous. And even today, that I was plays with in middle school, but dad would not let me pursue it or go down that path until I was older. And then he said he would support it, and he made some phone calls, and I went out to LA, and he saw what that life was about and wanted me to have nothing to do with it. But Rambo 2, it was Rocky 4 as Ivan Drago, I believe he auditioned for. And there were some other things that came up but Vince wouldn't give him the time off. And because see, what people forget about those days in the 80s, they were wrestling every night still. Like
Yeah.
they still wrestled like a territory. Like you might see the match on Saturday, but they wrestled that match 8 times before it made to television in different places, because that was the only way you got exposure.
Yeah, and there was no pay-per-view. There was no Saturday night, none of the big shows. So you had to do your storyline in the ring and sell it before you got out. There wasn't that week-long storyline,
Vince was building a national brand. So if you caught the match on Saturday on TV that they filmed for USA, man, that thing was taped like 2 weeks before that. You think you were at that show, and it might have been in a completely different location, because they would, Dad wrestled Hogan for the title 11 times, which I think was, I'm positive because people have researched it. He wrestled Dad for the title more than he did any other wrestler. That's how over that match was. And Dad got, in my opinion, from the little bit I've watched, Dad got the most out of Hogan out of any wrestler. But I think Dad got the most out of almost everybody he wrestled, because they had to kind of raise their intensity, their standard, and their performance in order to keep up. He was nuts. Again, he could go, and you were huffing and puffing when you got in there if you didn't have the level of cardio he did. He'd have you winded in 3 minutes.
Sam, did you have any fan comments at all that you want to go through at all, or anybody that has any?
Yeah,
questions?
one time, well, everyone loves you. I mean, they loved your dad. But one of our guys, Dan, said your dad was a family man first, then a professional wrestler. Awesome, the way people are supposed to raise their kids. So, pretty much people are just commenting because, mentioned other Bruno Sammartino. Again, I think it's it.
Well,
People
I'll
are saying hi. A lot of people are saying hi and stuff like that, and they love what your dad.
Thank you. I repeat it because it's true. He was an amazing wrestler, but he was a better father.
Right.
And
they see that.
When I think on an individual level, you got to see that side because he would show it if you were listening and you were emotionally available, because that was very much a vulnerable side. He didn't play the heel outside of the ring like people think, and just to keep up it, because he didn't, again, introverted and actually insecure in many ways. He didn't think he was smart. He would go back and forth because he knew he was very intelligent. He wasn't book smart. In fact, when he graduated from high school, they went down to the homeroom to give out the diplomas, and the principal came up. My mom, they had been married by then, and the principal came up and handed the diploma to my mom and said, "You earned this." And she did his homework. I'm so grateful that when he passed, because again, you got glimpses of my dad if you were in the right place at the right time. But what we've been able to create and share through social media, because he unconditionally loved me and I unconditionally loved him. When we started these pages, I always said, and I told Tyler from the beginning, I'm like, this is a love letter to my father. This is a love letter to who he was as a man. So we're going to be positive about everything. If there's negative comments, they're going to get deleted. We're not going to engage. We're not gonna, you know,
Feed the trolls.
even beyond that, just we're not going to engage in anything that could be perceived as us taking a shot at anybody. And so, you know, when I started that journey, I said to him, I was like, I need the world to know my dad through my eyes. Y'all already know what he's like here. I need you to know what he was like through my eyes, because I want to set the record straight around how, you know, not to, no pun intended, but how wonderful he truly was. Like, you'd have to know my family, how much they adored him. And if you go and look through our pages, it's funny, at the beginning, there was comments I had to delete, but it got to a point where I never have to delete them now, because I think it's hard to react to something that's so positive. You kind of know, like, that's an energy that you don't want to even kind of go after, because nothing we do kind of ask for any negativity. And in fact, I've mentioned this recently. You know, I put my heart on a platter when I made those comments, and my heart is in every reply. You know, it may say a heart on Instagram, but that's truly my heart when I laugh and see what people say. But you know, recently I did a tweet, and it was because Triple H mentioned Dad at one of the news conferences, and somebody, you know, I didn't watch it. Somebody texted me it on a Saturday morning, and I'm, you know, doing my morning coffee and meditation and prayer, and you know, I get up off my knees and check my phone, and there's this clip, and I was like, man, that made my day. That really, really warmed my heart. And so we put it on each page, and we put it on Twitter, and I never anticipate or expect likes. So I don't care. I'm sharing what my heart is, because that's what he did, you know, and I'm just as intense in a completely different way. But that tweet of me being grateful had 300,000 views. And I don't care about the views. It means nothing to me. I saw it the next morning. I had to put my reading glasses on. I'm like, that's not right. But I went and visited a friend that was in Chattanooga briefly, and it was the first time I really been out for a while. It didn't change my day. My ego didn't go anywhere. It's a cool story, but what made me so happy and makes me happy about all of the things that we've done is that gratitude got 300,000 views.
Right.
Me being grateful got 300,000 views. I don't care how many people meant to see it or engaged in it. You know, the best gift he ever gave me was unconditional love. But the last gift he gave me, when I had to become me, I couldn't kind of be just his son, and those were two separate pieces. I had to figure out what my identity was. I had to come to grips and terms with kind of this, you know, dual life I had lived. There was a time where I wasn't very proud of who I was or what I had become. And, you know, I have a story of recovery through, you know, I identify as an alcoholic, and I'm not anonymous. So I chose sobriety. You know, my dad was bipolar. I've had my own mental health and physical issues. But, you know, for me, this entire journey, because when I was young, he said I would tell his story. And of course I didn't believe him. I didn't even know how I would, but it turns out I got to tell his story and I got to rewrite mine. And I'm proud of who I am today. And I can't say I was always that way, even though every time we got off the phone, he would say, I'm proud of you. And I didn't feel like I deserve it. And I'm not proud of everything I've ever done, but
Well,
I'm proud of myself now. And I
well,
think that's what matters.
well, we're proud to have you on, and you know, you're definitely somebody who I can definitely be considered a friend, you know, and an honorary crew member, because you know you're nice enough to give us the time of day. You could have just said no and passed us up and go to some, you know, podcast that has billions of views. But hey, you're the everyman, and I think that's what your father was. the everyman. You know, you talk about how he was for the underdog. Well, we're a bunch of underdogs, and we appreciate having you on. For
I'm
anybody
still
that,
grateful you allow me to talk.
yeah,
You know, and I mean this sincerely. When somebody asks me to do something or be on a podcast, I don't look at how many followers they have. I don't look at how many likes we get on those pages unless somebody points it out. I'm giving you my heart, and anytime I get the opportunity to share my heart with other people and talk about, you know, a little bit about me and a lot about my dad, then that's a good day.
oh,
That was a
absolutely.
great interview, man.
No,
Well, I
we
appreciate that.
Well, it's been a good day for us. We appreciate having you on. I guess what I'm trying to say is we don't want to keep you up too much longer, even though you can probably talk for longer than an hour and a half, or whatever. I just want to say, like, uh, for anybody that is interested in Travis's story, for the viewers out there and all that, let us know what you think, and let us know if you have any feedback, because we really want to know and hear from all you viewers out there too, just to get an idea, because I know there's a lot of wrestling fans. I live in northern Minnesota, so that we have a lot of wrestling fans around here. In fact, a local thing called Destination Pro is having a thing in a town called Thief River Falls, Minnesota, which is only like 20 miles from where I live. We're getting Kurt Angle and Eric Rowan coming to the Ralph Eggleston Arena, and they've never been to that part of
Kurt
Minnesota.
Angle's from my neighborhood.
So
Kurt Angle grew up in my neighborhood.
yeah, it's kind of a fun thing, It's like it'll be an event on May 11th. This is kind of like a free advertisement, I guess, for it, but most people know about the event already. Anyway, I mean, your dad, I suppose, when it came to just kind of ending his career and whatnot, and when you look back, I mean, what's the last fonding memory you want people to remember of his legacy?
So, and I'll probably get emotional. So just let me get through it if it's okay.
Sure.
I didn't grow up with the same dad my brother did. You know, he was 18. He was 28 years old when I was born. And when I was about 7 years old, my father and I went to church and he got invited by the pastor, and the pastor walked up to my dad in the gym and said, "I don't think this town's big enough for the two of us." And Pastor Ike Reichard, who actually, he was the pastor for his funeral. And that took some serious guts to say that in the middle of my dad's workout, because he didn't wear headphones. He didn't need them. He was tuned in. And my dad said, "Is that so?" And so Pastor Ike Reichard invited us to church, and dad was sweating during the service. I mean, pouring sweat. And the next day he went in and said, "What did you do to me?" We went and visited him at the pastor in his office. And Ike's like, "What?" He's like, "What did you do to me?" And so my dad gave his life to Jesus Christ that day. And so I remember, of all the things you guys know about Mr. Wonderful, they had this thing called the Living Christmas Tree at the church. It's a big church. They still have it. And I've never forgotten this, but he went up and spoke, which dad, believe it or not, did not like doing. And I don't remember what he said about any of it, but I remember him saying, "He is Mr. Wonderful." And so, when you want to know what inspired and motivated my dad, it was his faith. And so I've always believed that things happened exactly the way they were supposed to. And the father I had, and the man that people know, is because of that moment, because he knew where he stood on this side of the earth.
Oh, that's
Awesome.
Awesome.
That's
Right.
awesome.
That's great.
Well, we appreciate you, man, and just thanks again for giving us the time.
Thank you.
Honestly.
You guys are too kind. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I hope you guys have continued success. Y'all have a great great camaraderie, and just keep this guy off of the Zoom video. He's too ugly. Get him back on the radio.
And these two boys, I'm really proud of you boys tonight. No sibling rivalry tonight. No arguing and fighting and calling each other names. I'm proud of you boys tonight. Good job.
That's right, you did very well.
I don't know if Travis is aware of why everybody kind of looked at him funny when he said something about the psycho fans from Philadelphia.
Oh, I knew exactly what I was saying. I was fully aware.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you, and thanks again, everybody, for tuning in.
Thank you, Travis.
I think we'll
Hey,
leave
God
that
bless. Thank you so
today.
much, guys.
We'll see you
Have a
guys
steak.
again.
I want an autographed picture.
All right, I'll send him my email. We'll hook up.
All right.
I will see you guys again next week for another great edition of Renegade Radio. Good night,
Love you,
everybody.
Bert.